Shelter.
Shelter. Okay.
Shelter.
Shelter. What does shelter do? Let's see what that looks like. Oh, it's a shell.
Wow. Wow.
Hey guys, and welcome to another video. I'm just sat here quite late at night with a fly buzzing around my head, but I realised we've had quite a lot of news come and go again, and I want to fill you guys in with what exactly was going on. Of course, the beta weekend has been going on from Friday through till today, but there was also a point of interest. Friday was a really busy day for ArenaNet, and though there was no elite specialization this week, they still had stuff to talk to us about, and that's namely world versus world side things, which I'm pretty happy to hear about. Let's be honest, World vs. World seems to have been on the back burner. They were like, hey, here's a new map that they're going to be getting. Hey, here's a couple of new changes that are going in. Hey, there you go, that's it. And that seemed to have been the whole story. But don't forget, when we did hear about Guild claiming a while ago, we heard that we'd be getting a more in-depth look. And so there was points of interest and a particular blog post that went out, and I'm going to talk you guys through those. That Shaman did a bunch of data mining, and of course we have also had a whole bunch of stuff come out from the beta. Usually things about class balance and elite specialization, like how they feel tuned. I've actually played a fair amount of things now, as you guys know, for my channel. This week I've now done 7 full days, if you count the first test day, worth of streaming. For me, it's felt like a week of non-stop interaction with you guys, though I'm sure if you've just been watching the YouTube videos, things hopefully feel like they haven't changed too much. So what have we shown off? What have I at least experienced from the beta? I do want to touch on this a little bit because we've only had some first impressions on the channel. I have played the Dragon Hunter, tried both a trap build and a spear chucking build, neither of which I particularly enjoyed. I tried the Tempest, sort of, didn't really give it a fair time, and chat voted for like a tanky Tempest build, which of course wasn't too interesting. I have played and loved a ton of the Reaper, smashing down 20,000 damage Gravediggers. In fact, I think that's what the footage in the background is going to be for a fair amount of this before we move on to the World vs. World stuff. Has been super fun, as well as playing some Daredevil and Chronomancer in PvP. Chronomancer was actually, I was a little bit better at, though. Continuum split is really difficult to kind of wrap my head around, while the Daredevil I was playing like a pistol build, which was kind of weird. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a beta, and maybe we'll talk about that more in a dedicated video going forward. So let's move on to that Shaman's data mining, because this had some nice small little things that could be coming to the game that I think many of us will appreciate. So they are mostly option-based stuff. Now, there were some generic strings of text related to mastery acquisition and stuff that were also mined, but what we really want to focus on are some new in-game options being added, and they seem quite interesting. They're combat-based options. So first is an option called skill retargeting. Again, let me just clarify, this is data mining. They may not end up going in. This could have just been the devs testing with stuff, and specifically the two options I'm about to talk to sound like they're a little bit complicated, so we might find they don't work perfectly. But the first one's skill retargeting, and it is described as this. When using a skill that targets enemies, changing your target will cause the skill to update with the new target. So when I first heard this, I really wasn't sure how this would work, because my go-to example for a skill, for some reason, was Arcane Blast on the Elementalist. So this is a small projectile that you can fire off instant cast at a target. And I was like, well, how does that work? What, you use that on a target and then it's a symbol? Well, don't think about that. Think instead about, say, on a ranger with a longbow, rapid fire. So this is your skill 2, and for those who don't play this class, it's a channeled ability that continuously fires lots and lots of arrows. So what this means is if you have skill retargeting on, and you start the rapid fire on one guy, right? And the first arrow you fire out of these many arrows that are going to be channeled out of you, the first one kills him. With skill retargeting on, you can still, during that cast, click someone else, and your character will automatically start firing at the other person. It's what I really would consider to be baseline, a part of the combat system, and there are actually a lot of situations, the more you think about it, think about your favorite class, there's actually a lot of situations where this kind of thing can be really useful. Another interesting one is it doesn't have to be continuous effects, it can just be anything with a cast time. So this, for example, if you're a kill shot warrior, alright, you're charging a kill shot on someone far away from you. This is a really well-defined, easy-to-think-of ability. You're charging the rifle up, you're getting ready to, you're taking aim, you're getting ready to fire, and then at the last second, the guy 1500 range from you, maybe stealths, and someone else pops up right next to you. So you can quickly, it adds that little bit of twitch, you can quickly click a different target if you want, and your warrior will spin on the spot at the final moment and then shoot the guy right next to him. Pretty cool, right? So there should be a lot of those situations. I see nothing wrong with this. I actually think it's just going to improve the way that the game feels to play. And maybe this has come about because of a few new abilities they want to have with their future elite specializations. And particularly bear that in mind for the next one too. So the next one is called Snap Ground Target to Current Target. And the description is this: the ground target marker will reposition itself to your current target's position as long as it's within range. This is amazing quality of life for very specific setups. So a grenade engineer, for example, every single ability you have from skill 1 through to skill 5 are ground targeted abilities. When game launched, you had only one option for ground targeting. It was click the skill once, a circular thing would appear, aim it where you want, click again, and it would go. Then they added a couple of new options. They added instant cast, which is wherever you click, it's just going to go straight away. They added release to cast, which is what I and most players use, which is while you're holding the button down, you get to aim it with the circle, and when you release the button, it will throw it. And now we've got this even better one, which will allow you to throw those grenades, and as long as you've got a target, they're always going to go directly towards that target. But see, this one you may not want always on, because grenades, of course, have got a velocity. You can trait them to have a higher velocity. Let's say you don't. We'll roll with this example, shall we? You're actually going to, if someone's far enough away and you leave this on, you can't throw the grenades ahead of someone in anticipation of where they're going to be to then actually land your hits, and you may end up finding that you're missing a lot. So I think a lot of people are really excited about this, but in practice, we might find this as a little bit like auto-targeting, and realistically, we might end up finding that we're turning this off. But again, I specifically think these two things, they're useful to us, but they also seem kind of randomly dropped in at this point. And I think there really could be something we're seeing on the Druid or on the Forge that is going to take advantage of this. It's no surprise to me that Engineer is already a class that sounds like it uses a lot of snap ground target, and maybe the Forge is going to develop on those grenade aspects or whatever, mortar kit as well now, and several other things. Now, perhaps it's really going to be very beneficial to play as a Forge with this kind of stuff, or maybe the Druid too. The other little thing that this data mining revealed was we've heard about this Central Tyria Pact Mastery, which allows you to instantly loot all items that drop from enemies. And I was a little disappointed to hear about this. Like, yes, it's a nice convenience feature. There's another streamlining thing, though, that I feel like removes some depth to the gameplay. No matter how shallow that depth is, or what little depth there is there, I kind of like pressing F and seeing what my loot is and then picking it up. Everything just vacuuming in your inventory feels very automatic. And specifically, the announcement of this mastery made me a little sad. I'm not going to harp on about this. It made me a little sad, though, because one thing I very much enjoy in other games, and we enjoyed massively in the first one, is the ability to see the actual items on the floor that other people are having dropped. We talked about this recently on the channel. A lot of people agreed. The idea of just being able to remove stuff from your inventory. And now, in theory, that could never happen with this mastery. But the data mining kind of makes it sound like you max this mastery out and it allows you to turn on this option and it'll be like grayed out until you finish that mastery off. Which is a curious way to do things. But if they do it that way, then it means even when you max it out, you still get to experience that classic loot system, which I'm happy to hear. Alright, so that's the data mining, that's the stuff to do with the beta. Let's move on to points of interest. Points of interest will split into 3. I'm going to focus mostly on the world versus world section. Now, in the middle, there was a talk between 2 of the music composers for Guild Wars 2. In my recent videos, this one too, hell, why not? You will have been hearing Hearthorn's music. Again, this is from the world of data mining, and this is some stuff but there was some totally new tracks we heard here in the background that sounded amazing. Seriously, check out the PoI so that you can actually listen to them, sort of. Those tracks sound incredible, and I'm really excited to see where they end up using them. I genuinely think that the people they have doing the music at ArenaNet right now are doing a far better job than Jeremy Soule ever did. Ignore Jeremy Soule's weird, nutsy comparison comments about copyright and all that stuff that generally makes people dislike him. Let's ignore that. Look at the guy as a professional. Look at the music he's created. I would still say, even just viewing that in a vacuum, I prefer what they're currently coming out with, and I have since Living World Season 2. Really excited about the Heart of Thorn soundtrack, and even though it's not Jeremy, it definitely still does feel Guild Wars, and specifically they talk about that quite a lot too. The third section was Hugh Norfolk and PvP 101, actually looking at some elite specializations. I think that's good, because that's something going to get people to stay tuned in on that section. But the main bit let's talk about is world versus world claiming with Tyler Bierce and Hugh as well. So, what they've explained to us now that the UI is in the game and now that a lot of stuff is finished, is exactly the way in which you as a guild get to claim locations in the new Desert Borderlands and in Eternal Battlegrounds while you're playing World vs. World, and how that functions. Now, we've heard some of this information before, but I'll go over it again. So, the basic idea is if you're repping a guild, right? Let's say there's a ton of players just took a keep, okay? When that keep flips, the guild with the most number of players there will then be offered the chance to claim it for themselves. If they pass on that, say they don't want to claim it, then the next biggest guild group there will get the option, then the third biggest, and then after that it's kind of a free-for-all and anyone can claim it. They have some totally new UI in the game. You might not see it exactly right now in the footage, but you will see it on the footage at some point. They have this new UI in there. It pops up on the side. It's much more obvious than it used to be, which was where you'd have to go and speak to the NPC. Then once you've actually owned that place, you get to slot some upgrades. So the two types of upgrades are these. Again, we've heard of this before. We have improvements, and these are like passive things, and you have tactics, and tactics are active things. So I'm going to use a supply camp as an example. So you've just flipped the camp, you take it as your guild. You might choose to have an improvement where you give your Dolyax armor, okay, and now they're harder to kill. Or you might choose to have another improvement where your Dolyax can carry more supply. These are passive things. Or you might choose to take a tactic which allows you to chill everyone in the area. They kind of use the Winter's Day machines. These things are really exciting to see because every time you pick one of these upgrades, there are real physical things that reflect that upgrade has occurred. If you picked up an upgrade that causes your walls to take reduced damage or to be immune to siege damage or your NPCs to take reduced damage or whatever, they actually have, they change the color. They'll turn the walls blue at first. If you choose a tactic that makes them invulnerable, then they'll go gold, and it's very visual. One of my favorite ones that they showed off in the stream here is an upgrade that allows you to identify enemies around the location you've captured, like in a tower, right? So you actually see floating above the tower is this cool, like, gadget blimp thing spinning a spotlight around in the sky, and when you get close, that's awesome. You can physically see opposing that place. You can look in the sky and be like, oh god, they've upgraded that and they're going to see me if I go near it. So they talked about a few of these things. I'll go into a little bit more detail on them in a second. There were a couple of other little pieces of information gleaned about World vs. World here, though, that I do also want to go into. First of all, there is now the fact that all the sentries on the map will also have this revealing capability. If you don't know what I mean by revealing, it's kind of this fog of war idea that we see going on in Edge of the Mist. In Edge of the Mist, you can capture a location on the green side, and you can buy these little sentry turrets that you drop down, and any opposing enemy that goes near them will be highlighted on your mini-map. So currently, in most implementations of the game, you only see allies on the minimap. Well, with this, you see enemies too. Fog of War. And this is going to be a mainstay mechanic for World vs. World in the future, both in the new Borderlands and EBG, because you'll be able to upgrade locations to actually detect people around them. Not only that, though, the sentries, which currently don't really do anything, they harass like the Dolyax a tiny bit, right? And they're worth an event or two. Well, now, these also have that functionality. In addition to the other functionality we heard before, where they'll be able to cripple Dolyax and they'll be able to provide the medkits to speed them up and all that stuff. So sentries have a much bigger place to play. Another global and sort of unrelated change to World vs. World revealed here is on the minimap now. When you look at objectives, like towers, at places with walls, basically, looking just physically at the map, you can see where there are cracks on the walls, and that tells you where your points of entry are. And their description for why this is now in the game, yeah, it's a nice quality of life feature, but why'd you go to the effort of this? There's a ton of quality of life features they could add. Well, it specifically sounds like it's because these objectives are so much bigger in the new map. In the new map, they're massive, they're difficult to get around, and you're going to want to know a little bit more easily exactly where your points of entry are. And it was just a fun little thing that I suppose they've added. So let's go back to this idea of claiming. You flip the camp, you claim it for your guild, and now you want to put some upgrades in it. So there's this idea of a war chest, okay? And every guild has their own war chest. Remember what we heard about in the guild halls, where you have scribes that use various resources, okay, looted from wherever that your guild has worked towards and pulled together. The scribes will craft these schematics, and they'll build them back at your guild hall. Once they've been built, they go into the war chest. So this is like your guild's inventory for World vs. World. And then once you've captured a location, now you can look inside the war chest and you can see whether you want to use any of them and slot them into that location. So for example, we've just claimed the camp and we want to upgrade our Dolyax. We want to give them armor. So a scribe, hopefully back at your hall, has already made that, put it in the war chest, and you slot it into the corresponding improvements slot, and there you go, you're done. In the case of the other type of upgrades, not the improvements, which are passives, but the tactics, which you actually activate, you find at locations now there are these levers. They're calling them tactivators at the moment. I don't know whether they're going to leave them like that. Tactivators is a great name. I wouldn't mind if they do. But basically they're levers that you can give different people in the guild permission to pull, so you don't get people abusing it or whatever. If you instead choose to build something that you're going to have to activate, like the chill field that I've talked about. Once that's built and it's ready to go, when you pull that lever, it will then fire off. And so for the example of this, It lasts about a minute, and then you'd have to build another one. It would, you know, be about a 15-minute cooldown. So you don't have to spend one from the war chest. After you've got the original upgrade, it will just start going on cooldown, as far as I understand. And so that's just the general way it works. That's the general way that we have guilds interacting with their guild halls and then bringing stuff into World versus World. It's really a lot clearer in my mind now how it should work. And what particularly excites me is you'll have the really big guilds, sure, going to hold the large locations, but even the smaller guilds will really be able to take ownership over even the camps and stuff. And they'll be able to remain at those camps and try and keep them as built up as they possibly can. So hopefully there's space for all varieties of, you know, group sizes, even during peak hours. That's not accounting so much for player caps and stuff, but we should see more, at least, than just one guild doing everything on the map during prime hours, or just 2 or 3, you know, dedicating a single guild to each map, because you're going to want a lot of different guilds so that each guild can claim each location and get all of these different benefits. So you'll see more fracturing there, and I think that could be a good thing. One other interesting thing that I do like is, of course, many of these things are about defending locations. It's going to make the play of attacking a location different to how it currently is. You know, now you've got more to expect if you're trying to assault a place. Are they going to fire off these various defenses, and how are you going to deal with them? They even mentioned this a little bit on the stream. The idea of the chill thing, it really fills up the inside of the entire tower, and an assaulting group has got a long way to slug through that chill. So it's kind of, do you retreat and wait for it to run out and then push in? Which would then, of course, buy the defending server time to regroup and maybe counter you with some kind of response. Or do you feel like you don't have that time, but you've got a group that's built a lot of Condi cleanse? Maybe you have a ton of diamond skin ellies, and all of a sudden the chill doesn't mean so much. So there's counterplay both on the way you tackle them, but also how you build your zergs, and that particularly excites me too. And this doesn't just mean that people are more likely to be defending in that sense, but there's more incentive to hang around your objectives even when you're not actively being attacked, because there are upgrades you can buy for these, like banners, and you'll be able to generate those banners for 15 minutes at a time and then take them out into the field with you. And what does that mean? That means 15 minutes later you may end up your guild may want to go back to the objective you dearly own, just because you want to refresh on those things and bring a new set out with you, rather than always being motivated to return just because there's an attack and your scouts told you so. So what else is there to say? Well, there are improvements and tactics, yes, 2 different types, active and passives, but then there are also standard improvements, and then like area-specific improvements, and standard tactics, and then like area-specific tactics. So what does this mean? It means the standard ones you'll find across all objectives. So the chill thing I'm talking about, you'll get that anyway. You can build the chill thing at a camp, you can build the chill thing at a keep, you can build it at a tower, wherever. But the armored dolly axe thing, that improvement isn't relevant for a keep. So that isn't like a standard thing, that's a camp improvement, right? And so in this way, depending on the objective you capture, there are different specific things you'll have available to you. And this is why they can have, like, Stone Mist Castle have like these special airship strikes, while camps instead give you, like, say, doom buggies. And then the final thing to think about as well is, let's say you've just captured a tower. When you first cap it, it's a tier 1 tower, and then you need to get a lot of dolly axe in it or spend a lot of time for it to automatically upgrade to a tier 2. When it becomes tier 2, you can slot more stuff in. So this isn't like you just pile everything you possibly can at all times. This is actually build crafting. You have a certain number of slots. If it's tier 1, you get 1 passive and 1 active, all right? Or 1 improvement and 1 tactic. Then, when you get it to tier 2, you can add another improvement and another tactic. And these are different. These are tier 2 ones. So the idea here is that you've got like an interesting decision to make. For example, you can choose to have your NPCs, including like the Lord, take 50% reduced damage, or you can choose to have your actual structures themselves be the things that are reinforced. So I'm going to read you guys our list of everything they've announced in a second, and you won't be able to take it all, just bear that in mind. You're going to be picking and choosing one of each for each tier. And there you go. That's pretty much the structure. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It certainly did to me after I watched the stream. The devs were goofing around. There's a lot of funny stuff. Let's move on in. So first, let's look at tactics. These are the active things. So the T1 tactics, you're going to get supply drops. All objectives can have these, and this just gives you 100 supply of the objective. Pretty basic. These all have really cool animations as well and stuff, by the way, guys. Like, really inspiring. I really, after watching this, I'm thinking to myself, I've got to give World vs. World a shot again when HoTness come out. I really do have to give it a shot. I may end up transferring to a low pop server so that I don't like have the pressure of, you know, all the top groups or whatever and feeling like I have to super know what I'm doing. I don't know, but I definitely want to give more of a shot. And I think that, especially if you go to lower pop servers, once HoTness comes out, there's going to be a place for you to really find your guild and experiment. Just fly, will not get out of my face. Okay, so then you've got Chilling Fog. Talked about this a lot. You will have seen it in the footage. All of the invaders are getting chilled. Invulnerable Dolly Axe you can only get at camps. This is a tier 1 tactic. And what this does is when you pop it, when you pull the lever, it makes your next set of Doliacs that go out invincible, and it guarantees they'll get to that location. This is an interesting one to me because there is no real way for people to counter it. Obviously, they can't use it too much, and one way that is always available is to flip the camp for yourself. You know, if people are really utilizing that a lot, then maybe you just desperately feel like you need to assault it and take it off of them. Moving on to the tier 2 stuff. So you're going to have to wait a while to upgrade your locations before you get this. You've got the banners and the Dune Roller. So first, let's look at Dune Roller. Oh my god, you guys will have seen the footage. This thing looks amazing. Ah! Oh my god, this is incredible. It can jump. This is what we saw in the original trailer. It seems finely tuned now. They've got all of the skills in, and it is a wonderful thing. So this summons a Dune Roller. It makes you move very quickly. When you're in combat in this, you will still move at full normal speed. You have an ability that makes you move really fast. Think about fighting one of these is what really excites me. You're actually going to have players trying to chase vehicles down and trying to destroy the vehicles. You have like 30,000 health and a bit of passive regeneration, but this is mobile siege. The abilities you cast in this actually have siege. You even have a way of like negating projectiles coming in from behind you as you're trying to kite away from people and get to locations quickly, and you have like technically a way to stealth by blasting in that field. Really fantastic. Seeing Zergs running around in these buggies, would be something I'm very, very excited to see. Let's talk about the banners. So they talked a lot about the turtle banner on the stream. These are, imagine like a warrior banner, but tuned for World versus World. So you can only have one every 15 minutes, all right? But you can take it, you can use it to defend a location, or you can take it out. So you got a centaur banner, which is more offensive based. And they talk about the skills here. So this banner provides wider access to powerful offensive skills as well as Defiance bar. So both of these banners do, while you're holding them, you get a Defiance bar, which is quite nice. I've got to get used to calling that instead of a break bar, I suppose. You get a summon, a centaur. You can call down cascades of arrows with a barrage. You can charge forward, kicking up dirt that blinds enemies. You can create a circular spiked barricade that bleeds enemies inside of it. And if players try to leave, they get immobilized. And you can transform yourself into a centaur spirit and then trample the hell out of people. We haven't actually seen footage of that, just the description they've given us on the blog post. And then the turtle banner, which has what I can only guess are placeholder names, maybe. But they're all pun names, is what you saw at the start of the video. It's kind of hilarious. I loved how goofy the devs were here. It was really enjoyable to watch. But so this is the turtle banner, and this has massive, massive AoE support capability for your group. So the skill 5, for example, is an immense ability for your entire Zerg, essentially. And people don't even have to be balled up that closely to get it. So all manner of supportive kind of things, and you'll have one player out there. Your one player, probably your commander, I guess, who's going to be commanding with this banner and buffing the hell out of people and really supporting his Zerg. So these seem super, super fun. That's just tier 2, guys. And then finally, we've got for the tactics tier 3, which gives you the dragon banner. And this gives you super offensive skills. So I should clarify, the centaur's, I guess, more a bit about mobility and control, while this one's about just doing massive nukes of damage. The powerful flap of a dragon's wings launches enemies backward and gives nearby allies super speed. Sounds a lot like Herald stuff. Call forth dragon's breath in a massive line that damages and burns enemies. Allies standing in the fire gain quickness. This sounds cool. We're going to have to wait until the next beta, I suppose. Before, I'm really hoping that, by the way, that the next Heart of Thorns World vs. World beta they do, we get to experience these things. Not just the banner at tier 3, though. You also get invulnerable fortifications, and you can pop this anywhere that you have walls on an objective. This will make all of the walls totally invulnerable. These are like golden walls that they did show off in the stream. And emergency waypoint as well. It will put a waypoint for a period of time that cannot be contested. Even if the place is under attack, people can basically res rush and waypoint in. I'm hoping that's on a very short duration, because otherwise that sounds completely broken. Then there are a variety of improvements as well. We've already been talking for a long time though, guys, so I guess I'll leave that there. I'll give you a very comprehensive look at how this works and the systems even in use when we have the next beta, should they give us one, or when Heart of Thorns comes out. I will say this was a really entertaining stream. I really like to get that little bit more clarification on World vs. World, and for the first time in a long time, I'm interested in playing it, not just because I want to know more about it, and I feel like I should know more about it. I'm interested in playing it because World vs. World sounds like it's going to be badass after Heart of Thorns comes out. Thanks for watching, guys. My throat is very sore. I'll see you next time.
And enemies that run through this gets slow.
Yeah, because slow has a turtle icon.
That is true.
Oh, nice.
Does that
It's important.